I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the interview room. We're so excited that you're here tonight. Oh my goodness, on a Sunday night, you've blessed our lives with your presence here, each and every one of you. We are so grateful to all our mods, our subscribers, our channel members, our Patreon members. You just being here as a subscriber just makes our life complete as a whole on this channel. So we're thankful that you chose us for your Sunday night. And boy, as always, I've asked Steve to come back here tonight. Mr. Steve Johnson, if you have not met him, you are in for a real treat. In fact, throughout this entire show, I'm going to run his website down at the bottom here. So that link will be going through our entire show. And he's world renowned. He's a forensic statement analyst as well as a forensic writing analyst. He trains law enforcement, not only on the state side, but the federal side. And he and a couple other folks around the world are all known as, top of the building. He is really an amazing human being. He's been given a real gift. God has really blessed his life to see things that welcome to technology, monology. Let's see here.
Hey, everyone. Chris, you're frozen up, pal. I guess Hawaii is a little bit too far from you.
We just flee.
Well, let me cover for Chris for a little bit. I'm excited to be back for another episode regarding Summer Wells. This is a case that I'm really interested in having a conclusion to, like many of the other cases that we've seen conclusions to recently. Even though they haven't been good and a lot of time has passed. So, the more time that's passed, the outcome for Summer's not looking real good, but we want to bring the case to a definite conclusion. And so I'm real curious and interested in coming to that conclusion. So the case that Chris is going to introduce what we're going to talk about tonight, but it's going to be about. Are you back, Chris?
Yeah, Steve, this is crazy sometimes how this gets to a point where it just starts up, and then I don't know if it's bandwidth or what the deal is, but long story short, it just cuts out. So thanks as always, as a dear friend to pick up the slack. And I guess my lights
anytime.
I know what happened. I know what happened. My camera just went out. So let me fix that for a second. That's why it's not bright here. Yeah, no, it's really, really interesting. So there you go. How about that?
Yeah,
a little better?
Yeah, a lot better.
I usually stay in the dark anyway. You know that. So it's great. Thank you so much, as always, for jumping ahead of us here and taking the reins. It's just like in true cop fashion. He went around the corner. I got this side. So
what are you going to do? You got to slice that pie, buddy.
We roll with it, right, bud? We roll with it.
That's right.
Hey, but anyway, so everybody, thank you so much. We got 3,300 people in here right now, and we're just kicking off. We're grateful each and every one of you are here. I'm sure, Steve has kind of laid out a little bit about where we're going to head tonight. Appreciate all of our new members and also our subscribers and our Patreon members and our mods. I mean, Miss Sophia, Bowie Girl, Mimi J2, Sophie H, Stephanie Erb, who I hope is enjoying her family this evening, and of course, Miss Teresa Milligan. We are so grateful to each and every one of you, and we are very appreciative that you are on our team. Throughout the entire evening, guys, you'll see Steve's name running across the bottom of the preview here. And if you run over there at any time, even later on, and type in TIR on the classes that he offers, he is giving a discount 20%, right, Steve? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's just 20% on that new course, the Essentials of Statement Profiling. That's my newest. It's the mini course. And if you click on that and go to checkout, there's a place to enter a discount code. And if you enter TIR on the Essentials course checkout, you'll get 20% off. It's already pretty cheap, but I'm giving it to everyone here on your channel for 20% off. And then if you want to continue on, you want the full course, which is the course we teach to law enforcement. There is another discount at the end of the Essentials course that you can enter in for that full for the full course, the Getting to the Truth course. So that's a 3-day course, and so that'll make that Essentials course essentially free for you. So it's a great discount. There's some good stuff in there, and best course you'll ever take. I guarantee it.
Awesome. So let's have folks tell us where you are tonight real fast, and then we're going to jump right into our program this evening. Just kind of give us a heads up, with the Aloha spirit. Right in the chat here where you're from, where you are at currently. New Hampshire, we've got let's say Nebraska, Kingsport, Tennessee. I think Nebraska's. Are you guys getting hammered with some snow and stuff? Panama City, Florida. Thank you for being here. Daytona, Ohio, Louisiana, Winchester, York, Pennsylvania, Scotland. Thank you, Kathleen, for being here. Hangry Hummingbird, love it. Alberta, Canada. We love our Canadian friends. Hello from Arkansas, the Buckeye State, absolutely. Mississippi, Indiana, Malibu, California, Arkansas, Visalia, California. Shout out to South Carolina, Venice Beach, famous Venice Beach, Yorba Linda, New Orleans, Ontario, KC. Hello from Connecticut, Florida, Kokomo, Indiana. Yeah, you guys are close to maybe that guy they're looking at for the Delphi. Kentucky, U.S., Kentucky. There are friends in the UK. God bless you in Europe. Over there, a lot of tragedy going on. Just horrible war. Utah's in the house. Alaska, Canada, Minnesota, all of our hockey states. Argentina, love you guys over there. Maryland, Connecticut. Just great. Thank you so much for calling up on the roll call here. Australia, love our Australian friends. You see anybody you recognize here? Steve, New Orleans, New York, New Yorkers. Love it. My mother's from Manhattan, believe it or not. So she lived there as a kid from Boston. She moved from Boston to Manhattan. Hi, Sherry. Good to see you from Boston. From Boston, of course, Kingsport. Boy, Steve, do we have a lot to talk about? Can you
I'm
believe?
excited. Yeah.
Can you believe what we saw this week? I mean, talk
Chris,
about
that's
go.
a mic drop moment for sure with Grandus coming out and giving her statement. This is the type of thing that investigators salivate over for sure. These types of statements, and I just love that she sat down and answered these questions with the reporter, and every time a family member involved in the investigation speaks out, it gives us another piece of the puzzle. And this definitely was a big piece of the puzzle right here. So I'm excited. Thank you for having me on the show to address this. This is really something that as an investigator at heart, I really do want to address this with you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, this is kind of what is this? The gift that keeps on giving, right? As
for sure.
like to say.
I was thinking that same thing. It just keeps on giving.
I'm not lying. He can come up here anytime. Essentially, is the context of when, the sheriff came out from Hawkins County, Lawson. What say you about? Do you see anything about anything in relationship to how law enforcement is handling this? My sense is this has been right on target. I mean, there's a lot moving behind the scenes with, TBI, FBI, Hawkins County. I mean, these conspiracy theories, nuts, hogwash, there is so much going on with the feds and the card team and, TBI. I mean, Dave Roush was just up at the legislators, talking to him about Summers' case. He's probably trying to get more money. And, Lawson comes out the other day and the reporter asked, hey, did are you guys communicating with the family? And, could you, he comes right up and says, yeah, no, they're not cooperating. And they lawyered up.
Yeah.
From your experience, when you've had to do that, or your PIO on a caper you're working, what's the messaging behind that?
I think that I agree with you that the way they are handling it is likely spot on. If law enforcement was giving out all the information they had, that would be a huge mistake for prosecuting this case in the end. And so they're handling it just the way they should. We've seen the same thing in hundreds of other cases, and recently in the arrest of Larry Moletti, the same thing happened there. There wasn't a lot of information that was being divulged, and so that's the same thing with the Wells family. They're not divulging a lot of information, and rightfully so, because you can't if you want to have a successful prosecution in the end. And so I like that we haven't heard a whole lot. And Sheriff Lawson, he's not contaminating anything by coming out and saying that, hey, they're not cooperating. He answered the question, and it just doesn't surprise me that that's his answer. So Chris, I like it, the way it's being handled. And I'll tell you what, there's no way that Sheriff Lawson cannot work this case. There have been some people I've heard in the media say that he's been derelict. He hasn't been working the case. He cannot work it. He has to be working it, because not only do you have TBI involved, but you have the feds involved. That puts a lot of pressure on Sheriff Lawson. He has to work that case. So he's working in conjunction with them. And I agree with you, Chris. They're looking for more funds, additional funds to get out and do the things that they need to do. And I hope those funds are given to them one way or the other, so that they can keep going out and doing their searches and anything else that they need to do. So I'm right there. I think it's been handled the way that it should be handled.
Yeah, and if we look at just as an example, the West Boys in California, Bakersfield, picked that around, the family, everything just as a whole. And sure enough, they ended up, sticking it to the right parties,
Yeah.
yet everybody was, pounding on them for, what's taking so long. Well, and now we know that, they had them in their sights. And I think we all knew that just as a whole. And I think we all know that the good news here with Summers' case from an investigative perspective, and you just nailed it and just touched on it, Steve, is the fact that the feds are involved. And if there was ever any conspiracy or anything even close to that, okay, then, you've also got the FBI on a missing child case participating, and that just defeats, the whole purpose of the CARD team, the whole purpose of Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I mean, can you imagine the scandal that would be internationally if FBI agents are participating in, mysterious children, and guys who are involved in it, who are cops? I mean, I think we've just seen too many movies as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, let's support the agencies involved. They're nailing it. And I suspect at some point soon, there's going to be, some problems here. So, okay. So over here, I think you have some very interesting observations. This comes on the heels, and we're going to show that other video here in a minute with Grandma. And we're going to talk about what she said, but this is the written word, to coin Don, but this is the gospel according to Candice. And I think you had a couple of observations you wanted to talk about before we kick into full gear here. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I can address this, the handwriting. I love when they handwrite, a statement, a little note like this. it allows me to not only analyze the words themselves, but to then counter analyze with what I see in the handwriting. And there's a lot of different uh, traits that come out in the handwriting, personality traits, as well as other physiological traits within the handwriting. Handwriting is a type of body language, if you will. It's the micro muscles in our hand that are trying to portray what our brain is producing, and so it says a lot about us as we, when we look at the handwriting. And this is handwriting is used a lot. The analysis of it is used a lot more in the UK than it is in the United States, but I've used a lot in my investigations, and I've helped other agencies also with handwritten letters and notes and anonymous author notes and things like that. So I love it when they write something. This particular note, obviously the words that she wrote, the message is contaminated, meaning that this is not something that came from her own, what we call the free editing process, where she chooses what to write. She chooses the syntax, the context, the everything else, where she's going to begin and what she wants to talk about. This is contaminated, meaning that the reporter has asked specific questions. She's heard allegations, and she is responding to those questions and allegations. And so that is the context of this note. And it's all answering those, most of it is answering those allegations. So we have to keep that in mind. Therefore, an analysis of the words themselves, we're not going to get a lot out of that. We'll get some, but we won't get a lot. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I'll just point out a few things in this. And let me lay a little groundwork here. Our brain is a wonderful, amazing instrument within our bodies. And, our brain's default setting is to tell the truth. That's how we were created, is to tell the truth. And it's because of that the polygraph and other lie detection techniques and tools work. Because the brain was designed to tell the truth. When there is deception, there's stress within the brain, and it's those wheels in our brain are moving lightning speed in a microsecond of time. All these different thoughts and things are coming out, and so our brain is very efficient and effective, and those wheels are moving at lightning speed. When there's stress from deception, it's like throwing a wrench in those cogs of the speedy wheels in the brain, and it creates this disruption, if you will. And so this will manifest in the handwriting when we speak from experiential memory, and we speak from, there's nothing that should interrupt that speedy process. The writing is smooth and it flows. And when there's that type of interruption, especially from stress or of deception or other things going on, you'll see a hiccup in the handwriting. You'll see mistakes. You'll see certain letters and words that won't look like they should. We can tell, not in the handwriting, all kinds of different things. Not only deception, but we can see sometimes mental illness and drug usage, and and stress will appear in the handwriting. We see there's signs of all kinds of different things that and I won't go into all the details, but there's just a ton of different things that we can see in the handwriting, of how a person feels about themselves, how they're feeling. We see suicidal indicators. We can tell when a person is feeling upbeat, when they're feeling in a depressed state, and a myriad of other things. So I was real excited when I saw that Candice wrote this note. And so, Chris, if you could put that note in make it larger like you had it before, and I'll point out a few things. And while you're doing that, the first one.
Yep. Hang on for a minute. Let me get it back up. Sorry.
Okay, it's all right.
Yeah, you're good. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the first things that I noted within the writing is there are indicators in the writing of not only I see things that in there, particularly the spacing that changes when you start seeing an increase in the spacing. It means that our brain has paused in that thought process, but the hand is still moving. We know we're writing, and the we have this idea of what we're going to put down on paper, and the hand will be moving. And yet when the brain stops, when the brain pauses regarding the thought process, which is what deception will do, it will create this spacing. And the deception comes out in different ways for different people. But once you recognize how it portrays in the handwriting for a certain person, it typically will always portray that same way for that same person. So it's just a matter of recognizing it. So obviously, we see that there's a lot of erratic, I'll just call it erratic writing. In other words, it's not consistent. For example, that in the top line, that word never, you see how the E's are two different sizes, right? They're not the same. They should be the same. Most people can write, once you write an E, you're going to write the next E the exact same way. And when those E's keep changing, or the different letters, like the O's or the A's or whatever it is, when you have different size and different styles of the same letter, then that's called erratic handwriting. And it typically is that one of the reasons for that is that there's erratic thoughts in that person's brain. Another reason for it is oftentimes that is an indication, specifically within the ovals, the O's and the A's and D ovals and things like that. When those are different and we have that different size, that is often an indication of drug usage. This has just been something that has come out and been recognized in the handwriting for many, many years. And so that may be one of the reasons that we see this erratic writing in Candice is drug usage. And, even if I hadn't heard anything in the past from her husband, Don, about, Candice using any drugs or other chemicals or alcohol, I would say it's a good possibility she's using drugs of some type. And so, that may be a possibility for this. One of the other interesting things here is that, particularly because this is about, she's answering questions about lawyering up, and that's in that second line there. You can see the increased spacing between the no and the I and the have. You see how that spacing increased between those words. This could be a deception indicator. And also within that, the word lawyered, you see how she retraced within that Y. That's another thing, another indicator that her brain paused there. And so
How does her
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. How does her education play into what we're looking at?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So obviously the word law enforcement in the top line is misspelled. And, so I'm just going to note her education level could be obviously a factor in the spelling. Now, another factor could be that, there's an argument that, well, she hasn't if she hasn't had a lot of education, then she hasn't had a lot of practice handwriting. Well, I'm gonna tell you that there's parts of this handwriting that are pretty good. Okay. And anyone can see that. She knows how to write it. So I give her a pass for low education level, that some of this spelling is off. And that's where the education level comes into play, when we see the things that are misspelled like that. But if I see within this sample of handwriting where she has written pretty normal, well, that's an indication to me that she can do that. She's capable of that. And so where I see that, makes those locations where there are mistakes and other anomalies in the handwriting, that makes those even more significant. So things like this, the retracing and the Y, has nothing to do with a low education level. Okay.
Yeah, and this is an interesting comment, real fast. I want to just point out one of simple observations. Roxanne Macias says, at this point, CB is damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. You need to study multiple pieces of subject's writing to be able to definitively say anything more than the most general indicators. And not only that, and I'll let you, address a little part of that, but she is very streetwise. And this is where our experience comes in what we call parroting. On the next video that we're going to see, when Grandus is giving, her opinion of the lawyering up, she makes a sentence, or she says something that's pretty interesting. And it is, I can't not speak for Don. And Grandus makes sure to say that. Look who parroted that comment.
Right.
So
For sure.
that in of itself is the gift that keeps on giving. So, we're talking about either the sheriff is lying or Candice is lying. So I'm going with the sheriff not lying, and I'm going with Steve's analogy right now. I don't think you need much more than these 10 lines or whatever they are of writing. So not to have interrupted you there, Steve, but I just couldn't, I couldn't miss that opportunity as it presented itself.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, totally agree. And to the comment that was just made, I agree. The more handwriting you have, the better off you are in obtaining an analysis. And with what we have right here, all we can say is that at the time she wrote this is what we have. Okay, so it could change. She could have a totally different, maybe not be under the influence, or have a total not be under as much stress or whatever when she wrote something else. And so all we can say is that at the time she wrote this, these are the indicators that we see here. Things can definitely change. And I'll tell you what, handwriting does change when things in our lives change. And, we see this in a lot in the progression of suicide. We can start to see a little bit of dip and low self-esteem. And then if that continues on, we can see the handwriting just basically fall apart. And there's a lot of examples out there throughout history of that happening, including in Adolf Hitler's handwriting. And so, anyway, that's a totally different thing. But in this particular,
and I think she's also pitching to Don in this statement here, because he's locked up, but he has access to TV, and it's the local TV station that shows her writing this on the notebook. Ansley, I think, is the journalist who got this interview. It shows her, taking, film of a B-roll
right,
of Candice filling this out. But in here, I think she's also messaging Don, if in fact he gets a chance to see it on the news, that she's holding the line. She's holding the line out here.
Chris,
But,
that is an excellent point. And I totally agree with you that this is one of those ways that she is getting a message to Don, and I think she's hoping that he sees this, because they do need to stick together in this. And I liken this to sometimes we listen to jailhouse tapes, jailhouse phone conversations.
Exactly.
And how many times, Chris, have you listened to one and thought, this message is not intended for the person on the other end of the phone. This message is intended for me, the investigator, for all those that will be, that they know are listening to this recorded jailhouse phone call. And it's a message. It's the agenda or the narrative that they want us to hear. And so this is very similar to that. She's writing this, and that's, this is a great possibility. I'm not going to say that it's definitely that's the case, but it sure looks like this. And what we're seeing between Candice and Grandus is that you're right. It's that parroting. And so it kind of goes back to the scripting that we talked about last time. I was on your show.
You nailed it.
Yeah,
you nailed it.
That's what we're seeing here. I love it. It's very, very interesting from an investigative standpoint.
Yeah, and she's, because now she doesn't, have to, deny anything. She can let Don make the next move. She can let Don make the next move in jail. But I know you've got something really powerful that I think everybody's missed here. And so I'll let you keep explaining where you were headed. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, not at all. All great points. One of the biggest things that stood out to me in this handwritten note is the way that is what happened in her brain as she's writing her daughter's name, Summer. If you look at that closely, you can see in the U that her brain actually paused. It wasn't a smooth flow in writing Summer's name. There's some kind of hiccup there as she wrote Summer. Not only, Chris, do the M's not look anything like M's, whereas you can compare it to N's and M's and other parts of the handwriting. But if you will look at the U, you can see in that left side of the U how there's actually the pen balled up and on that stem, and you can see right in them about 3/4 of the way down on that U stem on the left side, the pen balled up. That's an indication that the pen stopped. It hesitated there as she's writing Summer. And then it also is fragmented. See how the U, it comes out to an L, and then on that right side, it actually stops again and then comes up, and it has a little tick at the top. And there's these little ticks throughout her handwriting. We call these anger ticks. And you can see those throughout her handwriting. But this hesitation in Summer is just key for me. It's not a smooth flow. It's not something that I would expect. In fact, it's totally unexpected. It really caught me off guard when I saw that. And it really stood out to me that she actually had that hesitation as she's writing Summer. So,
one of the criticisms here from, we're open to criticism, right?
Oh, for sure. I know there's going to be that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. But this person says, come on, she's writing on a bumpy surface.
Okay. And that's a good point, because the surface does make a big difference in the writing. The great thing is just like Chris said, pointed out, this is on video. And so she's not only writing on a notebook, which has some padding on it, but she's writing on top of that truck that she's standing right next to. She's writing on that surface right there, which is a smooth surface. And so if it had something to do with the surface, you would see that throughout the handwriting. You would have those hesitations or whatever it is, that surface produced in the handwriting, you would have it consistently throughout. not just on one word. And so when I see the hiccup on one word, I'm going to key in on what is that word? Well, it's her daughter. It's Summer. And so I know that there's this stress in her brain regarding Summer. Again, another argument. Well, her daughter's missing, and so she's feeling stressed about that. Well, okay, that's a good argument, but you know, Summer, if she didn't have, if there weren't any of the other indicators that we've talked about at length, Chris, in previous episodes regarding Candice and the things going on in her brain, it indicates that there is some deception, and there's some things she's not telling us, and there's some guilty knowledge about Summer's disappearance. And I think that's what's coming out here in the when she wrote the word Summer. And there's other indicators even below that. Look at the all and thank, and it's not thanks, it's thank for all the searchers. And look how she retraced that all. You know, that tells me also that I'm not sure that she's really thankful for all the searchers. And you think about it, she's thanking all the searchers that haven't found her daughter yet. And it's just an interesting point. And, you know, I'm not going to make some... What's that?
No, it's fascinating, Steve. I mean, the fact that, you know, she messes up her daughter's name. I mean, in terms of for how you're describing it,
right.
You know, there could be more behind just what you're saying. That's what you're saying. There's, look, you know, I mean, we go down this list here. I can, you know, we've got the parroting there. I cannot speak for Don, and we, now she's using the pronoun we. Is that, is she talking for Don there?
Yeah, that's a strong pronoun, Chris. The we and the I's are very strong pronouns, and you know, pronouns are one of those things that are instinctive to us. We learn them. Some of the first words that we learn, and we use them hundreds of times each day without even giving them any thought. And so they flow out of our brain effortlessly. And so that pronoun is exactly what came out of her brain, and that shows unity and familiarity. And so in this case, she just wrote, cannot speak for Don and we. It has to be the Don that we is including. And so what I see in that, the message is that Don, we are united in this. That's the message to Don. And it's also the message to the rest of the world that I'm not going to be alone in this. She's going to stick with Don, and it's typical that nobody wants to be alone, especially when there is some kind of guilty knowledge, which is what we have seen in the previous statements from Candice. And so very typical that they will bury themselves in with the crowd or with someone else. They want to be with somebody else. And in this particular case, Chris, you're spot on. It's Don, it's you and me, buddy. We're sticking together.
Yeah, we've got some, you know, there. Look at the clarity here. I see, you know, somebody mentioned that the word daughter before Summer is spelt correctly. And then there's a gap. Our daughter, when she's talking about Dawn. Okay. Our daughter, Summer, looks like stress there, you said, right? And when she starts thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and that's all you've been saying here. Well, that when you go into that, her name, when she goes into it, that's a stress point, and that raises the level internally for her. But this is, and where I want to go now is I want to get into the meat and potatoes about Grandma's statement, because these two are, you know, as we talked, I mean, they're kind of like cementing each other here with some of the comments coming out. You know, Candice doesn't want to talk to the media about her daughter. She'll write about her. Okay. Summer gets 11, sentences here or whatever they are. I don't know how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. 9 lines of communication, but she'll get, 1,000 comments on YouTube, but not about Summer. Okay. So now Grandma, I thought it was a brilliant to throw a knuckleball. And that knuckleball is, they're not cooperating and they've lawyered up. And immediately, for the first time, Grandus takes it and steps up to the plate and, batter up. So I'm just going to play her initial response. And everybody see that I have this picture here back here. This is Grandus's wheelchair. Okay. They've moved her. Now, isn't that convenient? Because they're going to talk all of a sudden about that day. Okay. And so, right out of central casting, sometimes, you're going to have to roll in the props. Okay. Because I know for the last 8 or 9 months or 8 months, she's been running around the country, i.e. back and forth to Wisconsin and to her, whatever else they were doing back there. And now she shows up in a wheelchair back up at the top of the property. Okay. But what's interesting is this chair she's sitting in is a Coleman chair. So it's a regular fold out camping chair. Okay. So cut, let's move chairs. You come sit over here. Okay. Well, why doesn't she just stay in the wheelchair? Okay. And do the interview from the wheelchair. And her first couple of comments right out of the gate, we haven't heard from her. And this is the first time, and kudos to this journalist. She is really on the ball here. Okay. Because now we have another part of the gift. Okay. This is like the bow now. So we're going to take the bow off. We're going to take the bow off tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. And even though it's really, really small, okay, the package, when you open it, it's like it's got a gas canister in it that just blows all this confetti out into the air.
That's right.
Right. Is that a good analogy, you think?
That's awesome. That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So she's asked, have you been talking, yada, yada, to the sheriff, because the sheriff called them out on it, and man, she's like, can you those two heard it. Well, they watched the news and they were like, oh, we got to say something. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Platinum Blondie. A glitter ball. Okay. So, glitter bomb, excuse me. So now here comes Grandus. Here comes Grandma to the rescue. She's been missing for 8 months, but by golly, Candice isn't talking to the authorities. I need to say something, according to the sheriff. And here's what we get.
No, ma'am. He can call me anytime. He can pull up in this yard and knock on my door and ask me any questions he wants to ask me.
How often are you in contact with law enforcement, whether it be Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, TBI, even FBI?
They have not contacted me since.
Okay, so this is a international audience here tonight, almost 7,000 people right now on this chat. And I'll bet you not one person is from a foreign country, right? According to Grandus, why would the FBI want to not go talk to them in any way, shape, or form? Okay. Over the 8-month period. Steve, what say you? Any thoughts?
Well, I love that question by Ansley. She asked, I believe it was, how often have you been in contact? Did I hear that right? How often you've been in contact with the sheriffs?
Yeah, let me show it again.
Whether it be Hawkins County Sheriff's Office.
Any questions he wants to ask me.
How often are you in contact with law enforcement, whether it be...
How often are you in contact with law enforcement?
Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, TBI.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that the question laid the context of the answer, and we expect her to answer the question. And I just, this response is priceless. She deflected. She didn't answer the question. She deflected, and what she said was, it was almost well, not almost. It was took a defensive posture that they can contact me anytime they want to. Which tells us she just answered the question by not answering it. She hasn't been in contact with the sheriff's department, and this is her missing granddaughter, 5-year-old granddaughter. And I guarantee that if our granddaughter was missing, my wife would be all over that. Grandma would be calling anyone she could to get a response, to find out what's going on, what can I do, what's the next step, and keeping the ball rolling just in case things had slowed down, to keep the fire lit so that our grandbaby is going to be found. And she just answered that she hasn't been in contact with them.
Yeah, I agree. And that's by her choice.
Her choice.
Yeah, let's listen to the rest of this piece here, and then we'll break it down even further.
Yeah, even FBI.
They have not contacted me since the YouTubers were down here in the driveway.
So it's the only way the family gets contacted is if the YouTubers are in the driveway. Okay. We're just going to let that sit right there. Nothing to say, actually. Just,
Yeah,
And
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it just solidifies that there's no urgency for them to contact the sheriff's office. And they're in response mode. They're waiting for something to happen for the sheriff that would necessitate the sheriffs or feds or TBI to contact them, rather than them reach out to the authorities. So she's in this defensive mode now.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost, well, they haven't contacted us, so we won't contact them.
Correct.
And I mean, I've worked a ton of these problems, and I never had a family whose child was missing not light that phone up. What did you find today? And we see evidence of that even with Brandy and little Michael Vaughn. I mean, I talked to the detective, and he's like, she calls me every day. And in this case, she's going to give us a little more information, which I think, I mean, you and I talked about this behind, in the back room. I think some of this information is the game changer.
Totally agree.
So,
yeah.
Yep. And we're going to get there. I don't want to.
we asked him about trespassing.
So the only reason the FBI, TBI, Hawkins County Sheriff came to talk to them about the YouTubers was so they could ask about trespassing. So TBI, FBI apparently got a call, according to Grandma. You guys all need to go over to 110 Ben Hill Road. They have a question about trespassing. And, there are people out front trespassing. Okay. Well, the FBI doesn't go to people's houses to talk about trespassing. They go to people's houses looking for missing 5-year-old babies.
Correct.
And going off of that, how often is Candice?
I think she's dumbfounded. She's like, what did she just say? And she's trying to word salad the next question. It's like, boom. Oh, that didn't make a lot. And even, this great journalist here is trying to go, where did that just come from?
Yeah, I totally agree. And hats off to her that she's asking the right questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Candice in contact, or anybody in contact with the agents working Summer's case.
Watch her eyes. She keeps looking, she keeps projecting. Okay, I'm already ahead of the conversation here. Are you grabbing that, Steve? That
Yes.
she's trying to figure out, okay, well, what is she going to say and how am I going to answer it before she's not listening? She's not listening.
No, she has.
I can't speak for Candice.
Go ahead.
She has a narrative that she wants to get across, and I agree, Chris, that she's trying to stay ahead of the game here. It's not going to work. We're going to hear it come up, but that's what she's going to attempt to do.
Yeah, and everybody, if you're just joining us here, we've got Steve Johnson. He's not only a forensic statement analyst, but a forensic writing analyst. And, between us, we just think this particular interview is fascinating. And go over to Steve's, company at truthtolies.com. It's running across the bottom. He teaches this not only to law enforcement, both on the federal and the state side, but he also teaches it to the private sector. If you're interested, you can sign up for some of his classes down there. So, her body language, I can't wait to see, some of the other folks take a shot at this because, I mean, look at her, just her, her grit. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to tell you, okay.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, I mean, you don't talk about your granddaughter like this. Okay. You talk about, right. Everybody responds differently. We all get that. Okay.
Yeah.
I've worked
Right.
hundreds and hundreds of murders in my career. I get it. I've seen people, go from top to bottom and then in between. Everybody responds differently, but not 8 months later. Okay.
Correct.
8 months later, they're crying. They're still broken internally because now they're into that emotional impact of this could be permanent. Okay. And I'm not seeing any of that from her at all.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree.
In the beginning, they were here off and on all the time, but now I haven't heard from them.
Okay, so she starts, doing a lot of this. Okay, so that was her response to the sheriff. So I'm gonna now play it again, Steve, and then kind of tell me what you're grabbing here.
Do you have an attorney yourself?
No, ma'am. He can call me anytime. He can pull up in this yard and knock on my door and ask me any questions he wants to ask me.
And just tell me when to stop too, by the way. Sorry.
How often are you in contact with law enforcement, whether it be Hawkins County Sheriff's Office, TBI, even FBI?
They have not contacted me since the YouTubers were down here in the driveway. And we asked them about trespassing.
And going off of that, how often is Candice in contact, or anybody in contact with the agents working Summer's case?
I can't speak for Candice. In the beginning, they were here off and on all the time, but now I haven't heard from them.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't speak for Candice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and so the reporter asked about Candice, how often Candice had been in contact, and her. And so she answered the question about, I can't speak for Candice. so I have to give her, she gets a pass on that one because she just answered Ansley's question. But she deflected the question about how often she's been in contact with the sheriff's department, and she didn't answer it, and instead said, they can contact. They haven't been here at all, and again, they can contact me anytime. So the urgency for her is not to contact them. In contrast, like you said, with Mandy contacting the investigator every day, she has not, and this has been, like you said, 8 months, and I noticed that when this reporter asked the question, Grandus shook her head, like, nope, there hasn't been any of that, and I know everyone, I don't put a lot into body language unless I see it in conjunction with verbal indicators, which I have here because she deflected the question. And so that makes that body language even more important. And if they put the two together, it makes that trait strong when we're profiling. And that deflection is she did that on purpose. She deflected that. And and I say on purpose, but in her mind, how often have you been in contact? And she doesn't perceive. It's her perception of how things should go. And in her mind, her perception is that she shouldn't have to contact them, that they are the ones that should be contacting her. But you and I both know, Chris, just like you said, in that current case that you've been involved in with Mandy doesn't wait for them to contact, and other people that don't have that need to be on the defensive, on that legal defensive stance, they are all over it. Ansley, I'm so glad you're here. I've been wanting to talk about summer, and let me tell you, I have contacted Sheriff Lawson and TVI. I've been in constant contact with them. And, my hope is that we're going to find Summer and bring her home. And we don't have any of that here. And I think that's what your point was earlier as well. So it's disconcerting, and it's not.
Yeah, and we know in the beginning, and we know. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I talked over you.
No. I was done. Go ahead.
No, we know in the very beginning that day, and quite often afterwards, they were interviewed extensively. Grandma was, for at least a couple of days. I don't know the total days, but I know it was, pretty extensive. I mean, a 5-year-old child does not go missing and somebody does not get interviewed. So I can guarantee you the card team had her and locked her into a statement early on. And I'm going to submit, based on what we talked about earlier, that statement now has become somewhat diluted based on what we're going to hear here and what you're going to break us into, because it sticks out. It's so obvious that, remember Sod, right? Some other dude.
Dude. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So tell the audience when, you had a suspect back in the, who shows up at the station and they're like, hey, detective, how are you? He says, hey, how you doing, buddy? Good. Hey, I'll tell you everything. Okay, no problem. And who's this? Oh, that's my buddy, John. Okay, well, John, why don't you have a seat here on the couch and let me go talk to Frank here. Okay, right in the middle of the interview, right? Just when you're starting to get to the meat and potatoes, what do? Right. Well, if you don't believe me, go ask John.
Go ask John. Yeah.
He'll tell you everything. He'll tell you everything.
Yeah. Or they come with a piece of paper and a name and a phone number on it, and they want you to go go call them. Just go call them. They can verify it. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Yep. It's like, okay, I'll do that. Let me go call him. And I tell you what, more
Yeah.
times than not, and I'd go out and call him. Okay, let me go call him. And either there's no answer, it's the wrong number, or it's somebody on that phone and they're doing exactly what we're seeing here, exact verbiage, reading off the script, parroting, and you just think, okay, well, why don't you come down and talk to me? Let's talk about it. Come on down, Mr. John Doe, that's on this piece of paper here, and tell me what you know. And guess what? They never show up.
They never show up. And look at the sequence on Candice is present while Grandus is getting interviewed, because the reporter said she doesn't want to come on camera. Okay. So what is Candice doing? She is listening to the narrative and parroting the narrative in a written statement.
The written
right
statement.
there, and adding Dawn to the narrative. Okay. And then you see what Grandus did was, well, I can't speak for Candice. Okay. I.e., have you been talking to the sheriff and the FBI and TBI? And then Candice goes, well, I can't speak for Don if he lawyered up. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the
God,
some other dude.
some other-
Exactly.
Exactly. I
I
mean,
love it.
this is classic. It's absolute classic. Here's the good news for you, Steve. This job security, buddy. Here's job security on your side.
For sure.
Yeah. You know,
For sure.
okay, so we're 1 hour. So let's get to the meat and potatoes here.
Let's
and this
do
is,
it.
I think, like a 4 or 5 minute interview, which I'd like to see what made it to the cutting floor, the cutting room floor. A guest on the show, please, to have you up here, because I'm just curious about what didn't make your story. And we don't have to show it. I just want to see. Let's put her up here. Hey, this is interview B.
Into the ER because.
Okay, this is the biggest one, because this is the day of Summer's disappearance. Day of Summer's disappearance.
Yeah.
Actually, if I see a question here, would she do a lie detector? I don't have that answer, but what I'm looking at here, she doesn't want to do a lie detector because she already failed before she walked into the room.
Yeah, for sure.
Hang on for a minute. I'm getting a little thing here. Oh, that's from you. Am I choppy? Am I all?
That was a long time ago. That was in the beginning,
cool.
Chris.
Okay. Sorry, Steve. All right. Are you ready? So this is the question from Ansley at WJHL.com. Get over to their news channel, watch their material, and we thank them under fair use to play this. So this is a game changer.
Yeah.
She came out and took me into the ER because my leg was messing up on me. And we were afraid something was wrong with my knee. I have a knee replacement. And she was worried that there was something wrong with it. And she took me into the hospital. And I ended up getting a shot for it to get rid of the pain.
So this is not an appointment. That's the first thing in this narrative. She
Correct.
gets picked. Candice comes and raises the awareness on the bum knee and says, let's get you to the hospital. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, excellent point that this was, she says it was, Candice was concerned about it. And so Candice wanted to take me to the hospital. And so that's why they went. And she's, there's obvious sensitivity here because there's a lot of explanation as to why this happened. And then for explanation upon explanation upon explanation, because Candice was concerned about it, because I do have a bum knee and because I have been hurting. And so I got a shot and I got some medication because I had to get the swelling down, and he gave me a prescriptions, excuse me, for the pain, and I had to wait for the prescription. And so it's like one explanation after another, one to explain the previous one. And that shows us huge sensitivity about this trip to the ER.
Yeah, good point. And guys, if you're just joining with us, in the upper right-hand corner, you see WJHL.com. That is their channel. And they have this interview up there. Okay. So when we're done here, get over there as well and, take a look at it. But, Steve, something that really, stuck out at me also was, like you just said, this is not a planned, let's wake up 8:30. We've got a doctor's appointment. This is, like you say, Candice saying, okay, your knee, you need help. Let's get help. This goes against the narrative of her saying, I picked my mom up and we went to the hospital, meaning like as if it was, okay, well, that's supposed to happen today. Okay. No, it wasn't, according to what mom is saying now. Mom's saying
Right.
just what you mentioned, and it gets even worse. Let me ask anybody in chat who's in the medical profession, if you do have a bum knee, what are the options? Can you put some of those options up in the chat here? I know we've got a lot of really amazing nurses, doctors, physical therapists, etc. What kind of shot would they give her to bring that swelling down? And then we're going to keep continuing to take a look at some of the things here.
They prescribed me to get this well blamed. And then we waited around for my prescription. Summer went swimming that day.
Okay, we're already hydrocortisone, okay, steroids.
Was.
Wait, that's huge. Steve,
Hey, Chris.
I'm going to go back because I almost blew it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Did you notice how in her language there was this? We talked earlier about this pronoun "we" and how there was this unity,
Yes.
and she says something to the effect of, "We waited around for my prescription," or you'll have to back that up just a little bit to get the exact language, but it was this we waited around for my prescription. And then a separate thing, Summer was separate, and Summer went swimming that day. And it's like, it's just kind of hanging out there. It wasn't, we took Summer swimming, or while we were waiting, Candice took Summer swimming, or anything like that. It was this, it's almost a passive insertion that Summer went swimming that day. And it's just interesting how it's dangling.
So dovetailing into that thought that you just brought up there, is it possible? And guys, if you're new to our channel, we're just thinking outside the box sometimes. Is it possible she dropped him off at the water pond with Hunter and then went to the doctor?
That
instead of the other way around. Because she says, I think, and wasn't she supposed to be there? All of a sudden, everybody's there. Hunter, Grandma, Summer, and Candice at the water hole.
Right. But not according to Grandma's perception of reality. That's not what her words are saying. That is not the case. It is Summer. That is separate from what Grandma was doing. Summer went swimming that day, but Grandma wasn't there according to her perception of reality. So this is awesome. I just love what this interview that Grandma's giving us here. It sheds a whole new light on that day. A huge point.
Okay, guys, let's put our collective thinking process into this. together as a community. And let's go back and listen to this again. And Steve, stop me so that I don't get too far. And I'm not going to say anything this time. I'm just going to listen.
Worried that there was something wrong with it. And she took me into the hospital. And I ended up getting a shot for it to get rid of the pain. And they prescribed me medication to take to get the swelling down out of my knee and around my knee because it was inflamed. And then we waited around for my prescription. Summer went swimming that day at the horse stables, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's a huge pause. And she swallows.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she is very careful what she's saying here.
Yeah. And Chris, also that comment, that last comment with that, after that huge pause, and she mentions the place at the, and I'm not sure exactly what that was. You might know, at the horse. To me, it sounded like
horse stable. Yeah, that's the water hole. Mm-hmm.
What's it called?
It's a horse stable, but there's a water hole there. Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought she said, the horse stable. So, but she said at the horse stable, I think it was, or I thought it was. And that tells us that
mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Solidifies that she wasn't there. She didn't know. This is what she was either told after the fact or heard after the fact or whatever. That was the story, but she wasn't there. And so we have now two huge things that indicate in her language, her perception of reality is that I wasn't there. This is what I think. This is what Summer did that day. And I think it was at this location. She's not there. So she's not, that Summer was not part of that. We waited around for my prescription, or it was two separate things. This is a huge portion of this investigation right here.
Yeah. So Mama G says Warrior's Path, and that's what it's called. And then D Irish says she questioned it. She questioned it, and from her perception, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to play it one more time.
On my knee and around my knee because it was inflamed. And then we waited around for my prescription. Summer went swimming.
Who's we waited around for my prescription? Right. So this is where where you were going. I love it.
Swimming that day at the horse stables, I believe it was.
Yeah, she's not sure.
No.
I believe it was.
And then we come back in.
But then she says, and then we come back. What's she doing there?
Well,
is she tying the narrative back into it?
Yeah. So that she says, and then we come back. And so that, and then is a form of a missing time. And then means time has passed. And when time has passed, that means obviously information has been left out in that portion of her narrative. That is one of the most significant forms of deception, when there is deception, is that people will leave out information because it's stressful to tell an outright lie, and so they don't do it. That creates stress in the brain and in the body that transcends physiologically throughout the body, and it's stressful. And so the brain protects us from that. And so they will use things such as a time gap, a lapse in time, to leave out information. So her perception of reality prior to this is twice she according to her language, she wasn't there. This Summer going swimming was separate from her being at the hospital and getting her medication. And it was a separate thing altogether that did not include her. Now, when she comes back and she says, and puts herself in it with the we, all I can say is that she is either somebody came back and picked her up, or maybe Candice went, like you said, Chris, picked up Hunter and Summer, and then came back and picked up Grandma, and then we went to pick up the prescription.
Walgreens.
It's something like
Yeah.
that, but it does not include her at the water hole.
So and here's a hypothetical. Let's say, the kids are left, i.e. Hunter, Summer. Hypothetical, don't know if it's happened, don't know if it's gospel yet. Okay. We're talking about investigative processing here, right? Steve, you and I know what that means. Okay.
Right.
So let's say the kids are there. She's at the hospital with Candice. They give her the injection, the cortisone. Maybe they're going to hit her with some, pain meds, of some sort. And now they get the pain meds, and now they're going to go pick up, the long-term, 30, 60, 90 day, meds or whatever it's going to be. But they got to get the kids. So they get the kids. I know they're at Walgreens because there is CCTV with a timestamp on it. And I'm aware of that. I've been told that and, spoke to very, very reliable sources. Okay. So this is when the call comes in from Dawn while they're in the Walgreens situation. But she doesn't mention any of that. I was out picking flowers, we were there, we were watching the kids with Candice, TikTok videos. This is kind of a denial statement, right? That, like you said, that I don't know what you're talking about, basically. That's what a normal person would say, right? What are you talking about, the water hole? Yeah, I heard she was there, but I wasn't there. Okay.
Yeah. And so if you refer back to the language, remember when Candice is at the water hole and when we went over that part of her statement, that there was that convincing language in that Candice had regarding the water hole. It's as if it was almost as if she was saying, if you don't believe me, I was here. Look, I made a TikTok video and we did this and that. And it's this convincing language that this actually occurred and that she was there. Summer may have been there at the water hole. There's nothing that says that Summer wasn't at the water hole. Right. It's just that it wasn't like Candice says it was, portrays that it was, that they were all there the whole time. It didn't happen that way. We know that if nothing else, you can't deny that Grandus was not there at the water hole.
Yeah, because she's pulling herself out of it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Guys, throw some red flags up on this. I think this is a curveball, but the bigger one's coming.
Yeah.
I went in my camper, and after we brought my groceries in for me, and the boys helped with that, and of course Summer. And
hold up. I don't think we can pass that up.
No way. Yeah, go. I can't wait to hear you.
Yeah, I mean, you heard it, and I'm sure a lot of other people have heard this too. That Summer was an afterthought at this point in time. This is part of the narrative, and it's just like, oh yeah, they of course they put. Oh, she said they helped me put my groceries up, and of course Summer. It was let me make sure I get that in there because that's the narrative, that's the script, and I have to be sure to get that in there. But it was a total outside second thought. It was not part of the original. They helped me put up my groceries. If that really happened, she wouldn't have to include that after the fact. And of course, Summer, she wouldn't even have to include that. In fact, if she hadn't said that, we might have just assumed, because that's the way the story was portrayed to us, given to us originally, that Summer was there. But the fact that she said, and of course Summer, Chris, that tells me that 99% north that Summer was not there at that particular time. helping to put those groceries away.
Yeah, and there's probably 1,000 things that we could think into, but we're not there yet. Of what are theories, right? I mean, you and I
Right.
both we're on the same page that it could be an accident. We're not sure if it's the
Right.
water hole. We're not sure if it's the stairs, playing hide and seek outside. Just the category of an accident. Okay.
Correct.
The second
Correct.
part, I'm not convinced, and this is my opinion. And you may have a different. I'm not convinced at all that this is a stranger abduction. It could be, I know for a fact internally, if it is something that was off of that property, it's somebody familiar to that property that the lost.
Chris, you froze up.
Okay, hang on. Am I back?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, could have gone out to gotten hurt, and we just haven't found her yet. But what really bothered me, and you grabbed it here, was she was an afterthought here in her. I'm going to go back, play it real fast, and then play it through again, because now she's talking about when they got home. Okay, and this, in my opinion, by the way, thank you everybody for your super chats and everything. I've got them. I'm starring them, and we're going to play, or I'm going to point them out at the end of this breakdown here. But I want to go back just for a second and let it kind of flow through, and then stop me again. Okay, Steve?
Okay.
Me and the boys helped with that in of course, summer. And I laid down and went to sleep, and I got up and I was sitting in my doorway.
Okay.
It's like,
What did we
whoa.
just hear? Right. Did you not fall off the chair when you heard that?
Oh my gosh. I could not believe it. Chris, I mean, and I don't know if Candice was standing nearby, and if Candice caught this, she might have just fallen over. Like, what in the world did you just do, Mom? This was totally outside the narrative that has been pushed by Candice this whole time. If you go back and listen to Candice's story, there was no mention of Grandma falling asleep, Grandma taking a nap. And so now by Grandus saying that she laid down and took a nap, it totally refutes Candice's story of her timeline of how things played out. This is extra time. And Chris, I'm with you. This is just like this is the mic drop moment in this whole narrative that Grandus and Candice are laying down. It breaks it apart. And so now the question is, well, was Grandma actually asleep, or did it happen the way that Candice said? And if Grandus was asleep, then what happened in that time frame, that time period that she was asleep, that Candice has left out, that she's not telling us? And another possibility, Chris, is that for me, reviewing hundreds of homicide statements and other case statements as well, just not only homicide, but the number one alibi that people will give is that I couldn't have been involved because I was asleep. I was asleep and I just woke up, and so don't look at me. And so that could be part of this. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't really matter at this point in time. Later on, we might dig in a little bit deeper into the weeds in that. But at this point, it just totally blows apart this whole narrative and the timeline that Candice has laid down. Now, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, this was for me now, because I've been waiting to hear her. This solidifies, the deception on the groceries in terms of, that, because remember, we're down to 2 to 10 minutes, according to Mom, that she was out of sight, then, went in the house, did all the things that we all know, that we've all heard. Okay? And now Grandma shows back up after being, told by the sheriff, essentially, oh, they've all lawyered up. And she grabs it and says, well, I need to say something. And to your point, Candice is there and she's probably going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And Mom, is realizing, well, I've just drifted off the script here. Okay. Because I've inserted myself back into the trailer, into bed. Okay. Well, and what's Mom doing? And where does the 2 to 10 minutes fit? She disappears. Is this also the real part? What is fiction and what is truth? Maybe she does go into the house with Summer. And maybe Mom is sleeping in the camper. But it's not 10 minutes.
Correct.
And that means Summer's doing all kinds of stuff. And it's not, where's Summer? Oh, she's downstairs playing with her toys, Mom. Okay. I see more of that fitting into the scenario potentially of, Mom, we're outside, playing hide and seek. Okay. All right. We'll keep an eye on your sister. Okay. I don't know. Maybe we're going to wake up one day and, TBI is going to say, here's what happened. In fact, I would, I put a bingo card on that one.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay. So, let's listen. After we brought my groceries in for me, okay.
The boys.
Big time pause there. She's thinking. Am I off base there, Steve, or is she going deep?
Oh, no. That pause is significant because Chris, truthful people can tell what happened forwards and backwards very quickly. There's that recall, that memory, all the neurons connected when an event occurred, and chemical release in the body, and all kinds of things happen, physiological actions and responses and occurrences within the body, and all those neuron connections. And so when we recall something that happened, especially something as significant as this day, because this is, a hugely significant day. And so she's going to remember all these little details. She can recall them. And so for that pause tells me that that's significant for me as an investigator, as an analyst, that there's something that interrupted that speedy process of the brain, and it caused that disruption. And so typically that is when she's trying to think about, typically it's deception, Chris, to be quite honest. I see that more when there's deception. And so she's inserting that as a second thought, an afterthought. And Summer, of course, that we in the beginning about taking the groceries in, and they helped me bring my groceries in. That's those pronouns just flow out of the brain with no cognitive effort, no thought. They're instinctive. And so that interruption, and then adding and Summer, of course, oh my gosh, Chris, for me, that is a huge deal. So you are spot on regarding that big old pause, how significant it really is. It's hugely significant.
Helped with that and of course Summer. And
oh yeah,
I laid down and went
Right.
to sleep, and I got up and I was sitting in my doorway, and we come out and
see, I was sitting in my doorway and we can't come out.
Yeah.
Is this Candice with her?
Somebody's
And the
with
kids-
her.
Somebody's with her.
I don't know if Candice went and woke her up, but somebody was there with her, because that we is very strong. And like I said, it's just it takes no thought. It indicates definitely the presence of somebody else inside that trailer coming out with her.
Candice asked me what I was doing. I said, well, we got to transplant these little cactuses.
Is she with Summer? And Candice comes out of the house. What are you doing? And well, we got to transfer these little cactuses. I mean, is she referring to Summer, and Candice is referring that's Candice who entertained the idea with Grandma to get, Summer involved? I'm a little confused here. I'm going to go back here just for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I laid down and went to sleep, and I got up and I was sitting in my doorway, and we come out, and Candice asked me what I was doing. I said, well, we got to transplant these little cactuses into bigger pots. And we did that, and then
I think she's talking about Summer, because we've got to transplant these little cactuses, and we did that.
Well, I'm not sold on that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to take it off the table, but in her language prior to that, the fact that she brought Summer in there with the groceries as an afterthought. And so I have to say, well, Summer wasn't even there with the groceries. So
Okay.
if that's the case, then Summer has not entered into her perception of reality and was not there when she went and laid down. She didn't say that Summer came in and woke me up. Summer, in her language and her perception of reality, was not in that trailer. She didn't say that. The only person that has entered into her statement is Candice. And she did say we came out, but I wonder, is that Candice coming to wake her up? Because Candice is asking, well, what are you doing? And Chris, we have to keep in mind that also there is still the narrative. There still is the script,
Right.
and the parroting that Grandus needs to go by. And so it would take a little bit more time to decipher which part of this is the script and which part of it is experiential memory. There's two different things. And I know that if we took quite a bit of time and dug through the weeds, we would figure that out. We would decipher which one is script and which is experiential memory. We can do that. But at this point in time, the only person that's there that she mentions is her and Candice. So I'm thinking that this is not Summer, because Summer has not been in her perception of reality up until this point in time, and still isn't. And so,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. I mean, this is fluid. This is fluid. I love this. This is guys. This is what investigations is all about, right here. Just beating it, and then all of a sudden the evidence just screams, and it's there.
Yeah.
It's undeniable. It's just undeniable at that point. So, but I think we can all agree now. Grandma has put herself sleeping inside of that trailer post. It sounds like picking up groceries, even though she skips over that. It sounds like there are groceries involved in here, or it's, well, there has to be because there's milk jugs, but that we don't know when that picture was taken. The area it was taken, and
Right.
the timeline sounds accurate. At this point, Grandma says, and it makes sense because, we've got some medical folks here that are, and I agree that, she's got some type of opioid on board for pain meds. And if they, shot her with cortisone, she had to get home to get that thing off of get off of her knee. And, Candice says, yeah, I adjusted and fixed her brace. So yeah, let's keep going. This is pretty fascinating.
Summer come in and had a piece of peppermint, which is her favorite, and Then she went in. She said, "Mama, I want to go play with the boys." Candy walked her back to the house, and
Hey, Chris.
she asked the boys to keep an eye on her. And
Yep.
So that part right there, I think is, first of all, Summer came in and had a piece of peppermint, and the next statement is convincing. If you don't believe me, in essence, she's saying, which is her favorite, I think she said, and it's part of the convincing. All she had to say was, Summer came in and had a piece of peppermint, or Summer came in and had a piece of candy, or whatever, but she added more to it, which is her favorite. So that's convincing language. And then what did she say right after that? I don't know. Can you
Let me play
just a
back.
little bit?
Yeah, 30, just a couple seconds.
And then she went in. She said, "Mama, I want to go play with the boys." Candy walked her back to the house, and she asked the boys to keep an eye on her. And
She stopped mid-sentence. She stopped with, "in." I really don't know what happened, so got to go to the script real fast. So hang on, let me back it up. Yep, go ahead.
No, the point where she says, and Summer says,
Yeah, exactly.
"Mom, I want to go play with the boys." That's script. She's quoting what Summer said, which is okay to remember the quote and the last things they say. I like that, but she's in the moment. She didn't say, I believe, maybe you might have to rewind this, but she's in the present tense. Summer says, which is present tense, meaning that's part of the scripted language, especially when we hear her using past tense, and then all of a sudden she slips into present tense. And I may be off base here. I think that's what she said. I don't think she said Summer said, but it's Summer says. And so, "Mom, I want to go play with the boys." That's not typical 5-year-old language. "Mom, I want to go play with the boys." That is exact. That's the parroting and the scripting that we heard from Candice's story, which Candice previously told us. And so
why does she have to ask
Anyway.
permission to go 15 feet?
Right.
Yeah,
you don't.
I mean, I was there. It's literally 15, 20 feet. Why is she looking up saying, hey, but she can, disappear another 15 feet into that dungeon and nobody says anything. Where's Summer? Oh, she's down in the dungeon, Mom. Okay. But she's got to ask from Grandma's trailer over to the house, "I want to go play with the boys." Not, "I'm going to play with the boys." Right? To your point.
Right.
So let's listen to that.
Right.
Candace asked me what I was doing. I said, "Well, we got to transplant these little cactuses into bigger pots." And we did that, and then and she said, "Mama, I want to go with the boy." She asked to keep an eye on her, and that's the last time I seen her.
Yeah, she's saying and.
Tell me, when you first realized that Summer was missing, what was going through your mind, and what was it like here?
To be blunt, it was hell. I mean, and I apologize, I'm blunt.
What say you on that? I mean, I was like, you're talking about your 5-year-old granddaughter. I love the dog barking in the background back there too, by the way.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this thing, to be blunt, it was hell. Well, I want some more. I want more detail from her about what was going on. What did they do? What was describe this hell? I mean, most people are gonna. I mean, think about this, Chris. How much description did she give us about what happened at the hospital? about getting her injection and medication and then waiting around versus this right here. You know, what were your emotions? What were your thoughts right here? Well, Chris, people don't like to lie about their emotions. They don't want to leave them out. Most people are, they can't contain what their emotions were. And because emotions are powerful. And then that's one of the easiest things to recall what your emotions were. And so she says, to be blunt, it was hell. And she immediately refers this to her other daughter, who's also missing. Is it Rose, I believe? And
Yeah, Rose.
So it's a referral statement to her other daughter. If you don't believe me, it was hell. I have this other situation and it was hell. So you should believe me that this one was hell as well. And Chris, I'm not saying that it wasn't hell. I think it was. But what I'm saying here is that there's information that she is not giving us about this situation with Summer. If this was emotional hell for her, there would be a myriad of things that she could and should and would naturally just blurt out and tell the reporter about what happened that day to cause those types of emotions for her. And she didn't do that. She referred, and she wants us to assume it for her because I have this other daughter that's missing. You should believe me that this was hell, but yet I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened that day. So that's what stands out for me about that.
Yeah, and I can speak with authenticity as a parent who has lost a child, and I remember every second of that event. Believe it or not, I was in Disneyland when they called me. The cops called me and said, Mr. McDonough, is issued, blah, blah, blah. They had to verify it was me. And then they told me my son had passed away in an accident. And it just blew my mind. I mean, I cannot tell you. What I can't tell you is how exactly I left Disneyland. I can tell you what gates we went through and all of that emotional time frame just sunk. So when I heard this from her, I measured it against my own experience and thousands of other parents and grandparents who have gone through it, and just came out of it going, wait a minute, that's the club nobody wants to be in. And those that are in it, I think we all experienced the exact type of emotional trauma. So I didn't mean to interject my own experience into this, but I had to, based on listening to you, kind of measure her off and thinking, Steve is 100% right. Okay. Why do I talk? Yeah. Political. Okay. By the way, that's all gone. Thanks, Danielle. You're gone.
So Chris,
Bye-bye.
Your point is spot on, because you know how that plays out. You know what it feels like, unfortunately. So when you heard this, it confronted you. It was a brash confrontation that did not feel right. And there's a reason for it, because what you experienced is human nature. And like you said, members of that club know what that type of human nature is like, how you naturally respond to that. And so when you heard this, it was like, wait a minute, this does not fit. She's not in that. This is not part of that club, because there's more to it. And this isn't it. This is scripted, deceptive language right here. This is not language from that club. And so it's a perfect example of how that confronts you. And that's a big part of what we do. It's human nature. And when things don't sound right, don't smell right, don't feel right, there's a reason why. And that's what we're doing here, is pointing out, well, yeah, there's a reason why. And it's because it's human nature. And so the linguistics are human nature played out linguistically and there's a reason for it. There's a reason why it sounds truthful or it doesn't sound quite right. And so we're just enumerating why it doesn't sound quite right. It didn't fit.
Yeah. And, obviously my sweetheart, she pegged it, more so than I did, obviously. Right. So let's keep moving. We're grateful for everybody here. We got 8,600 people and almost 8,700 people in chat still. So we're just getting to some really cool stuff here, and we're almost done in a little
As
while.
everybody knows, I have a missing daughter. She's been gone for 12 years. And all I could say is, oh God, not again. And I couldn't do nothing but cry. And we yelled for her, and we yelled for her, and yelled for her. And we could not find her. Candy was in hysterics. And we never did find her. She called 911, and she called Donnie, and...
Now she's shaking her head no during all of that searching efforts there, and talking about the 911 call and calling Donnie. What are you grabbing anything out of that? What comes?
Yeah, I absolutely am. She said she just described what they did when they found out that Summer was missing. She said, we yelled for her and we yelled for her and we yelled for her, and we never did find her. That's all they did. And then she describes what Candice did. Candice called Dawn, and I don't remember the other parts. There's too much. 911. And there's no other talk about, the only other talk was, it's going to be coming up here shortly. They send the boys down to the creek, I think it is. Yep. That is the only mention of anyone doing any searching whatsoever for Summer. Other than that, it was just yelling and yelling and yelling. And that's it. That's the only description of searching. And I'm just submit to you that she's telling us how that day played out according to what her perception of the events were that day. And it paints a vivid picture, Chris, that there wasn't any searching going on. It was just yelling for Summer.
Well, and there's an also to dovetail into what you're saying. She's sitting against Summer's tree and she's pointing straight across. So she's pointing where all the vehicles are parked. And then there's a steep cliff basically. It's not a cliff, but there's a steep hill that goes down to the road. And this is where all the guys were, trimming the trees off of the power lines, right? And the reason we know that is because down at the bottom to her left, where that bicycle is, that's the exit out. So when she was describing that, she pointed down the hill. Now, what's interesting about that is Don, when he went to the shed, well, if you go down that hill and turn to the left, that's where the shed is. Down there. And Don somehow says, yeah, I see the boys down by the creek down here when I pulled up. Okay, so he doesn't come up to the top of the hill. He goes down to the bottom where the shed is. And then what's really interesting is Candy, or Grandma here, makes a comment about what. Okay, let's check this out. Right? Let me back it up here for a second.
Hysterics. And we never did find her. She called 911, and she called Donnie, and we sent the boys down over the hill, and I stood in front of over by the edge there and watched them. And was praying to God every minute that nobody would take them.
Pray to God that nobody would take them. So she's, in her mind, while they're searching, they've already decided she's been taken.
Correct. Good point. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
the narrative had already been written. And this is why I think Donnie, on the way home, i.e., or if he ever was away, I mean, I think he was at work at some point, but it's possibly
Right.
could have been home too.
Right.
And we have the discrepancy of where the boys were. But in this narrative here, we're hearing her say, yeah, I watched him over the hill, but she's got a bum knee that day. In fact, in this video, she's sitting in a wheelchair and another safety chair for this is why I said enter the props. Okay. But
Good
that
point.
day, she was just at the hospital in the morning, and now she's waddling around, okay, and is down monitoring the boys over the hill when there's all this brush in there. So I don't know, something's not right in River City on that one.
No, I totally agree.
There was no sign of her.
Do you believe that someone took Summer, or do you believe that she wandered off? What do you believe happened?
I believe somebody took her. I know people say it doesn't happen, but it does happen. It happens in small towns. It happens in big towns.
What people say it doesn't happen. Why that?
Well, number one, there's a couple different things. She's number one addressing what she's probably heard. You know, the obviously the backlash from people saying that didn't really happen. That Summer wasn't taken. She could have watched your show or myriad of other shows and things posted on social media, or just talked to Candice or whatever it is, and you know, got the feeling or the knowledge that people aren't buying that story, and so she's addressing that. But it's also a convincing statement. It's convincing that this did happen. And she's taken everything else off the table. That you know, anything back if we back up a little bit, you know, we know from what she said about that day that, just like you pointed out, that the narrative had already been written. And so now she has to, since she just said that was the initial thing that she thought, and I think there was a we in there as well, that they thought that Summer had been taken. And I would submit to you that living on a property like that, my first thought would be, oh my gosh, what's happened to Summer? Number one, is there some kind of, you know, animal that came out of the woods that got her, if she was, you know, out playing by herself, or did she just have an accident? Did she fall down and hit her head, which would be super easy to do in that type of terrain, especially with the hills and whatnot that are there. That would be my first thing. Or where's she hiding? Where's she playing? I'd be looking all over for, you know, in all the little crannies and in that cave underneath the house, and that Candice said isn't a cave, and you know, down in the dungeon and all that kind of thing. There's no mention of anyone going down in the dungeon and looking for her there, or in the cave, or anything like that. They're just yelling for Summer. And so she's now,
Right,
by making these statements, she has to defend that narrative that they already came up with, that Summer was taken. And because she has no choice, she has to. She's up against the wall, because she's thrown that out there, that there's no, in her mind at that point in time, there was no other possibility except that Summer had been taken by somebody. And so this is her attempt to defend that narrative.
yeah, you've got this predatorial behavior. So, you know, taking a huge risk to take a 5-year-old child off of that property without the child really making any noise and all this other stuff, right? And yet
Yeah.
now you have a friend of the neighbors who hangs around with them, somehow interjects that there was some type of scream heard that day. Yet, you've got grandma here now. Well, I'm not really sure the time frame of when the swimming thing took place. I because she says that day. She doesn't say that morning, okay, or just before we left the hospital, okay. Hunter says a lot more than what she says. And, that kid now, and of course, there are moving parts in those statements as well. But with grandma here, you would think, that moment, she's already lost a child, Rose, and now she comes out of a nap and is like, yeah, we just, planted flowers. And all of a sudden, boom, summer's gone. She just vanishes. Okay. And to your comment, Steve, well, we yelled and we yelled and we yelled and we looked for her. Okay. You've got Candice say, well, I went down into and we looked under the bed and, we looked in the dungeon and, oh, by the way, I can't remember if this door was open or locked. Okay.
Right.
That's because she was filling in, because everybody was kind of asking, well, how did the basement play into this? And the only way the suspect could have gotten to her was through that basement door. And in fact, the behavior panel did a big thing on that. Okay. So they weren't buying it from the get-go. She's ignoring the card team and the risk continuum and all the science behind all the behavioral stuff that we're aware of, right? And that we know. And we've
Right.
applied for all of our careers, still do today, right? And so we've got this really confusing script, I think, that's starting to fall apart even further. And I think she just put the nail in it by saying, yeah, well, I was in sleeping. Because now I'm going to make a prediction here. Okay. I'm going to make a prediction here. I hope I'm wrong. I think now Candice realizes that mom inadvertently just put her under a steamroller. Okay. So what we're going to see is just like we did with Dawn, and I'm going to put $1,000 bingo card on this. Okay. Just like I said with Don's going to adapt and improvise, and he's going to fill in the gaps, and he's going to get the team around him. Okay, and he'll help him fill in the gaps, or they'll help him fill in the gaps. Okay, his cheerleaders will help the team fill in the gaps. Well, Candice is going to do that as well, but it's going to be about mom. It's going to be about mom.
Yeah.
She made a mistake. Okay, what do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. She's going to throw mom under the bus in the same fashion that Dawn threw Candice under the bus, which is big time, by the way. And my prediction is that mom's going to do the same thing, and it'll be something along the lines of, mom has, her memory's bad, she has dementia, or she drinks too much, or does too much pain medication, or whatever it is. But it will be something to discredit Grandus' story and her perception of things that occurred that day. So it's just amazing, this family, how it's this, well, Don did this, and I can't speak for him, but I'll speak for this one, and Candice did this, and Grandus did, and it's sods. It's sods. Some other dudes. They're going to be pointing the finger at each other, and I'm totally on board with you there, Chris.
Yeah, this is and by the way, thank you everybody. I'm going through the list here. I'm so grateful. We are so grateful. All new members, super stickers, just awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we're going to see a huge shift here in the next couple of weeks because from Candice and from Mom and from Don, quite frankly. Okay, from Don, because I think Don's realizing he's got to keep playing, I'm in charge here. Okay. And, if he doesn't play that round correctly, he's fall where all the alligators are.
Yeah.
And he's
Chris, you cut out.
It's insanity for him.
There you go.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah.
Thank you, Rock.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. You're fine now.
Her writing matches her verbal speech as well. Yeah. We
does.
talked about that, Mo, and yeah, we agree. We agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for becoming members. Could you compare her DV report from 2020? We could look into that. Mama Lisa, thank you. Fixing to, I love that. Yeah, I'm fixing to fix some things here. Meeting threes.
Mhm.
What does the other person say? Education level play into this? Well, some of the most diabolical people and intelligent folks I ever interviewed didn't necessarily have a high school diploma. Unless you've you haven't lived till you sit down with a Main Street Crip, from South Central Los Angeles, and he's got more street smarts than some professors I've met. That's how people, commit crimes, is they outsmart us. And it doesn't mean they have a high school or a college diploma.
Right.
That's why they're criminals. Boy, look at all the kindness. These people are coming, joining our channel here. And so hang on, let me get through these, and then I'm going to make sure that I don't believe Grandus went swimming with them. Also, I mentioned bunk beds were loved when Summer went missing. How then did C look under them in the basement when she went missing? 2 sets. That's a great observation, Jack and Angie, excuse me. You're right. I mean, she just lifted them up, and I looked under there too. It's like, there's nothing here. This isn't Grandus's first rodeo. Thank you, Becca. With a missing child. Wonder how she behaved with follow-up with her own missing child. Very interesting. That is a great observation. I do know this. They're getting close to some things over in that case in Wisconsin with Rose.
That's good.
As I mentioned it, yeah, we had a conversation with the folks over there. So they told me when they get ready, they will come on the show. And we'll see.
Awesome. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, we'll see. Vet girl. Okay, let's go over here. Did Grandus reach out to law enforcement when Rose May? Yeah, they contacted her, actually. It's a great question. They did. They contacted her. They have Dilaudid in the ER, prescription for Motrin 800 mgs and hydrocodone. They don't do cortisone in the ER. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I wonder if somebody's not trying to keep the meds up, right, for their tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a bad knee that day. I don't know. Only her and she left in the morning, no Summer. At what point all these discrepancies do Ellie feel like they have enough for interrogations and questioning? I think they have enough. The question is on the other side, just like Lawson came out and said they're not cooperating. See, out in public in their personal life, they're saying, oh, yeah, we're on the team and we're looking for Summer and we're doing this. But in their private life, they're not doing anything.
Yeah, and oftentimes people say that they're cooperating, which in their perception of it means I'm answering any question that they have of me, and that's my cooperation. And so by them having answered in the previous interrogations or in interviews, they answer their questions, and so I'm cooperating. But now they're not really addressing what's happening right now, and so it could be two different things. It's it's what do you mean by this when you say you're cooperating? What describe that? What do you mean? And typically that's what comes out. Well, I answered all their questions in the past.
Yeah, she would, Hopper, she would not let me into Grandus's trailer. That's a great question. I know there are some pictures floating around with her standing at the door. You know, and you see her, right? And I know there have been some other creators that have had direct contact with Grandma through chat, chat messaging and stuff. And you know, there's some good stuff out there on the internet. Grandus to watch while she took H home. 911 call says originally mom was out walking. Right. Maybe H came back home with them and Summer was left. Grandus fell asleep. That's a great thought. That's a great thought. I mean, we don't know yet, right? Kama, you too. Thank you. I suspect Summer was left sleeping in a hot car. Kids die in hot cars. Yeah, Steve, you said that a little bit ago too. What was your thought
Yeah,
on that?
that's a distinct possibility due to Candice's stress level and need to persuade and the stress that she's feeling about opening that truck door. Just a lot of, if you go back and listen to that, there's a lot going on there about her opening that car door. So, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. Can't say for sure, but that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, if let's say all of the swimming hole stuff and all that stuff kind of falls into play, could she may have fallen asleep in the car and they kind of left her in there,
right? Just let her sleep and
that built. Go ahead.
No, that's it. Just maybe she let her sleep because she said she fell asleep 5 minutes from the house. So and I believe that earlier that or in Candice's statement she said that did she say she got her up early that morning and so if she fell asleep, it may be that she just let her sleep in that car rather than get her up and making her go down into the dungeon to go into her own bed. That's a distinct possibility that why don't you just sleep in the car, just let her sleep. And so, yeah, I'm definitely not taking that one off the table.
And all know that because there are so many scenarios where you just know this is what happened. You just know. And that's why so many have been trying to figure this out, even from the investigation side of this. There is a lot of what we would call, phone intel, data intel that's going on behind the scenes. Okay. Why doesn't she mention H not once? That's a great question, right? That is a great question. Why doesn't he come up into the narrative at all? Well, I'm going to let you tell us about what you've got going your house, i.e., your company there. Do I think the neighbor heard a scream? I don't think the neighbor heard a scream. That's just my opinion. I think that the Ellie has, and if she did, then or know something about Summer. It's that simple in a case like this. You don't have somebody coming up on that far up onto the property. Now, could she have been down by the road and got hit by a vehicle? Yeah, that's a very real possibility. That's
Yeah.
that's in a scenario, right? And then they could have
Yeah.
scooped her up and run her, shot her to the hospital, and she could have, on the way there is some discussion of maybe they don't want to take her there because of other things, which I have been talking about from, somewhere, that, because there's other problems. Okay. Then you got to cover up. You got to cover up. And so, anyway, accidents do happen. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But Steve, is this a random abduction, Steve?
Oh, no way. No. the possibility for,
and so between us, go ahead. Possibility for.
oh, you cut out.
Say
So
it.
the possibility for abduction is slim to none. I mean, it's just not, in my opinion, it's not in the cards here. So it's something else.
So I'm going to real fast give a shout out to everybody who's been here, and then I'm going to give Steve a couple of minutes here. And so everybody, let's show some love to this guy, Mr. Steve Johnson. Put up where you're at in the world tonight, and collectively let's keep some positive energy for the poor people over in Europe who are suffering right now. And for Summer, Monkey, all of the missing children in the world, and for the moms and dads who are trying to keep all of our children safe, all you moms and dads who are out there with your own children. I don't know what's going on in the world today, where we've had a lot of different things happening in my lifetime, and we're seeing stuff today that is just unbelievable. And we're always grateful that you're here, from Nova Scotia, from Texas, Florida, Central Texas, Tennessee, Kansas, Detroit. We here at the interview room really appreciate each and every one of you. And we love you with the Aloha spirit. Our friends in Hawaii and Polynesia and Tonga, who just recently experienced a horrific tsunami in New Zealand, earthquakes in Guatemala. There was a 6.2 earthquake recently in Guatemala. We don't know. We don't know. I am headed next week to Michigan on an assignment, a case. I'll bring you up to speed later on, but without guys like Steve in the world making it better, let's just hope tonight, Candice, if you're listening tonight, again, please take advantage of doing the right thing. It's time, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Summer deserves it. Steve, you know me, you have the last word.
Right on. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it, and I'm so happy to help out in cases like this. It's what I love to do, and it's what drives me. And I noticed some comments. A few people that are taking my course that said they loved it. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. These courses are they were I originally made them for criminal investigators so that more investigators could be trained to to be able to come to an accurate conclusion. You guys have all seen how the language makes a huge difference. If you really want to know what's going on and you want to know the truth, listen to the words. Listen to the words, because the brain cannot lie. Okay, it's going to reveal itself one way or the other. That's the wonderful thing. We as human beings can commit a crime, whatever it is, but when it comes to lying about it, to talking about it, we cannot conceal the truth. It's gonna come out. Just listen to the language, and that's what these courses teach, is how to recognize that language. Now, you don't have to be a criminal investigator to benefit. I mean, literally every aspect of your life, whatever it is. And even if you're just into solving true crime, helping out and things like this, it's going to benefit you. But it doesn't really matter what you do. If to recognize when someone is trying to deceive you, that is a huge thing. And I would love for everybody to know how to recognize that, to save yourself some grief from being deceived. And so, and you guys keep in mind also that what we're showing you here and what I'm teaching in the courses, it's something that we use not only to solve cases, to solve crime, but also conversely, your language can make a huge difference in your life and in the life of others. The way that you speak, your words reveal not only your perception of reality, but if you speak the words that create a good reality, you can change your life. You can change the life for others for the better, make your world a better place. We certainly need that in today's circumstances, like Chris was talking about, with everything going on around us. Speak positive, create positive outcomes, keep sending out those positive words and positive energy. It'll certainly make a difference. And keep remembering, in the end, God's going to win. And that's the takeaway from all this. Keep positive, because in the end, God's going to win. So thanks, Chris. We'll see you guys next time.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No one cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.